She just wanted a selfie a few steps closer to the fence. Just one picture in those next few seconds. Everything Chang did happened on a calm afternoon at Wildlife World Zoo in Arizona. Families were watching the animals. The sun was out, and then the screaming started. Witnesses say they saw her reach over the barrier just to get a better shot with the jaguar behind her, but in an instant the big cat lunged. There was blood panic. A phone dropped near the edge of the enclosure. People shouted for help. Staff ran toward the cage, but by the time they got there, Layla James was on the ground, wounded, barely conscious. But what led to this horrifying moment? Why did she cross the barrier? And should the jaguar have been blamed? Or was this a human mistake with deadly consequence? Break down the tragic chain of events that made headlines around the world. You're watching Animal Quests, where we uncover the shocking truth behind real animal attacks. If you care about wildlife, safety, and stories that matter, sure to subscribe, like, and share this video. Let's begin. March 10th, 2018. It was a warm Saturday afternoon at Wildlife World Zoo and Aquarium in Litchfield Park, Arizona, just west of Phoenix. Families wandered between enclosures, snapping photos after watching otter play and lining up for a glimpse of the zoo's most powerful predators, the big cats. This wasn't just any roadside zoo. With over 600 exotic animals spread across 95 acres, Wildlife World had built a reputation for offering something facilities dared to proximity glass walls, open-air habitats, and viewing zones that made you feel like you were part of the wild. That's exactly what drew 30-year-old Layla James, a Phoenix resident, visiting with her relatives that day. Layla loved animal adventure, and more than anything, she loved capturing it all for her social media following. She had posted smiling selfies beside flamingos. Just minutes before everything went wrong, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. As her group moved toward the jaguar exhibit, Layla saw an opportunity she couldn't resist, one that would turn a casual afternoon into a moment of chaos. A low concrete barrier jaguar pacing behind chain link fencing shot no one else had dared to take. She stepped closer, 1 foot over the barrier, arm outstretched with her phone. And in that instant, a silent hunter became a blur of motion. This is the story of what truly happened in those final moments. A single decision, a powerful predator, the consequences that no one saw coming. Layla James wasn't new to Wildlife World Zoo. In fact, this was her 3rd visit, but on this particular Saturday in March 2018. She came with something more specific in mind than just admiring animals. Layla, a 30-year-old office manager from downtown Phoenix, had built a growing online following with her bold, adventurous personality and carefully curated social media posts to her hundreds of Instagram followers. Layla was fun, fearless, and always chasing the next catching moment. Her feed was full of sunsets, from desert hikes, rooftop cocktails, and selfies beside everything from street murals to venomous snakish once held at a wildlife expo. Her captions always read the same way: just don't shot, just one life. That afternoon, her Instagram stories captured it all, her holding a soda cup by the petting zoo, giggling at the flamingos posing beside a giant tortoise, but none of it stood out enough, not yet. As she stood near the big cat enclosures with her cousin, she leaned over and whispered, "Everyone gets a picture with jaguar, but no one gets in the shot with one." She had seen the trend before in TikTok, in viral reels. Tourists edging close to dangerous animals, 4th perfect post, people reaching past warning signs, standing too close, getting lucky other times. No, Layla wasn't reckless, but she was calculated, and today she had worn a boldio top that would pop against the background of the jaguar's dark fur, a striking visual for the kind of content that gets shared, liked, remembered. Sheck knew the layout of the exhibit, knew where the viewing barrier ended, and knew just by looking that the Jaeger enclosure had a small patch of dirt in front of the fence with no guardrails, a tall, just a waist-high concrete dividerand, a few posted warnings, but Layla didn't see a threat. She saw an opportunity, one more post, one more moment, one that in her mind would last forever. She was right, just not in the way she expected. Was just past 2:30 p.m. On March 9, 2018, the sun blazed over Litchfield Park, Arizona, casting sharp shadows across the concrete walkways of Wildlife World. Zooth smell of popcorn and sunscreen filled the air, and families strolled between shaded exhibits, laughing, snapping photos. Among them was Layla James, her phone in one hand, a cold drink in the other, trailing just a few feet behind her. Cousin security cameras captured her movements as she rounded corner near the big cat section. The Jaguar exhibit loomed ahead, a larger pannier structure bordered by chain link fencing and a thin concrete moat. The Jaguar, a sleek female named Bella, lay draped across a rock formation, her amber eyes watching the movement of the crowd with quiet calculation. Layla paused, then she stepped closer. Tough edge of the barrier zoo. Signs were posted clearly: do not cross, wildlife is dangerous, stay behind the fence. But between two low shrubs sat a narrow one-guarded section, just a few feet of concrete, a small incline of dirt and theater fence. Of the enclosure, it wasn't meant to be crossed. It was a buffer zone for safety, but to Layla, it looked like an invitation. Her cousin called after her, but Layla had already stepped over the low concrete barrier, one foot planted in the off-limit zone, then the other. She raised her phone, flipped the camera, and moved in closer, just a few feet from the Cajano. The Jaguar stirred. People in their crowd began murmuring, unsure of what they were seeing. A few lifted their own phones to record. Layla crouched, adjusted her angle, tilted her head for the frameth. Jaguar stood tail, flicking ears forward, silent as it approached the inner edge of the fence. Layla smiled. Anthem, it struck what was supposed to be a moment of boldness had become a fight for survivals. Crouched just outside the Jaguar's fence, angling her phone slightly upward, trying to get both her face and the black and gold blur of the animal enthusiasm shot the camera lens, captured her smile, confident, focused, completely unaware of what was coming just beyond it. Mesh, the Jaguar named Bella Hadrison, to her feet. She paced now slowly, from left to right, her gaze never left Layla. In that moment time seemed to slow. Layla looked down at her screen, she adjusted her pose, and then with a warning, Bella lunged. A blur of muscling fur slammed into the inner wall. Off the enclosure, one massive foreleg shot through the mesh. 5 curved claws hooked deep into Layla's arm, yanking her forward with a force that knocked her off balance and dragged her shoulder hard into the fence. Her scream ripped across the exhibit as the Jaguar clung to her claws, slicing through her skin like paper. The metal fence rattling with struggle, blood sprayed the dirt. As Layla struggled to pull away, but Below's grip only tightened. The Jaguar tried to twist jaws, open teeth flashing just inches from the barrier. Layla's cousin screamed for help. A group of bystanders rushed toward the scene, horrified, unsure what they were seeing. It grabbed her arm and wouldn't let go, one witness later told reporters. She was screaming and hitting the fence. I honestly thought she was going to die right there. Another man, later identified as Adam Reinhardt, dropped his phone and sprinted to the enclosure without hesitation. He picked up a water bottle and hurled it directly at the Jaguar's face. It struck the fence with a loud thud. Bella flinched, startled, and loosened her grip just enough for Layla to collapse backward into the dirt. Her arm was shredded, deep gashes torn from her elbow to her wrist. She clutched it with her other hand, sobbing in pain, her body trembling, blood soaking through the fabric of Her shirt people surrounded her, calling 911, kneeling beside her, trying to stop the bleeding with jackets and towels. Within minutes, staff and paramedics arrived. Zoo workers cleared the crowd. Visitors were escorted away, but the damage had already been done. The moment had passed, and Ith had left. Layla broken, bloodied, and in shock, all for a photo that never made Ith and Lyneth's sound of sirens cut through the air just minutes after the attack at 2:39 p.m. First responders arrived at Wildlife World Zoo, rushing past stunned guests and into the jaguar exhibit area. Layla James lay on the ground in shock, her left arm soaked in blood, shredded from elbow to wrist. Zoo staff had wrapped it with towels too slow. The bleeding but through-ins were deep. You could see the torn muscle beneath the skin. Paramedics loaded her onto a stretcher as Herkison followed close behind, crying, shaking, repeating the same phrase over and over. She didn't think it would get it bad. Layla was rushed to Abrazo West Campus Hospital in Goodyear, just 10 miles away. She faded in and out of consciousness, clutching her arm, whispering that she couldn't feel her fingers. Doctors stabilized her. There were no broken bones, but the laceration, extensive deep tissue damage. Tendons narrowly missed the scars they said would be permanent. Layla would keep her arm, but it would never look the same. The news broke later that day. The public reaction was swift and divided. Within hours, the Wildlife World Zoo was trending online, but as reporters gathered at the gates and Headley nestled it, a vicious jaguar attack, zoo officials were quick to set their record straight. The jaguar did nothing wrong, a spokesperson said during a press briefing. The guest crossed a clear boundary, one that exists for her safety and for the animals. This was not theft of the animal behind. The Sinesu keepers were visibly frustrated. One keeper, who asked not to be named, told a local journalist, "We put signs up, we put barriers up, and still people ignore them. Every time someone crosses the line, it puts all of us and the animals in danger." The zoo confirmed that Belath, female jaguar involved in the attack, would not be euthanized. She remained in her enclosure, calm, alert, unaware. That world outside was now watching her through a very different lens. As for Layla James, her name was now part of a cautionary tale, a moment's decision, hadled to a violent encounter, a public scandal, and a painful recovery physically and emotionally. By nightfall on March 9th, the story had exploded. Online news outlets across the country ran headlines like "Jaguar attack, zoo visitor and woman mauled at Arizona Wildlife Park." But as the facts came out that Layla James had climbed over the zoo's barrier to get a selfie, the internet did what it always does. It split down the middle. On one side, a trudge poured in from animal lovers and zoo professionals. Commenters flooded media threads with anger and disbelief. She crossed the fence. What did she expect? One post read, shared over 12,000 times in just hours. Others, "We're less forgiving people like this are there isn't. Animals get put down. She's lucky to be alive, but not everyone." Pointed fingers at Layla. A second wave of backlash merged, this time against the zoo. Critics argued that the design of the exhibit was flawed. The fencing too basic, signage not enough. If people can reach the fence. One tweet read, "It's not a barrier, it's an invitation." achange.org. Petition briefly circulated, demanding that Wildlife World Zoo redesign its enclosures and enforce stricter boundaries. Some questioned whether this was a wake-up call for our zoos should facilities that invite the public to view dangerous predators, but doing more to protect both the animals and the visitors, even from themselves. Zoo responded swiftly and firmly. Mickey Olson, the director of Wildlife World Zoo, held a press conference outside the park gates. He was calm, but his words carried weight. "Let me be very clear. The jaguar will not be euthanized, its animal is safe. The woman crossed Theberia. This incident was not the fault of the jaguar animal behaviorist, wigged in Dr. Helen Merrick, a carnivore specialist with over 20 years off, was blunt in her televised interview. Big cats like jaguars are incredibly powerful. Even a moment off contact can be deadly. This wasn't aggression. This was instinct. A human entered a predator's space. The animal wrecked it accordingly into the zoo. The jaguar. Bella Wars moved temporarily to a Sakharov exhibit holding area while staff inspected the fencing and reviewed protocol. But there was no indication she would face any consequences, no isolation, no sedation, no death sentence, because in the eyes of the experts Bella hadn't attacked, she had defended her space. And Layla James had simply gotten too close 3 days after the attack on March 12, 2018. Layla James agreed to speak from her hospital bed at a Brotho West campus. Her left arm was wrapped in thick gauze from elbow, 2 wrists beneath it, a row of stitches held together the torn skin. Her voice was soft, shaky. The confidence she had once worn like armor was nowhere in sight. Made a terrible mistake. She said he's fixed on the wall behind the camera. I didn't think it would get that bad. Her confession was immediate and honest. She admitted she had stepped over the zoo's safety barrier to get closer to the jaguar enclosure. She had seen others take close-up photos. She thought she could do the same. It wasn't smart. She added, it was selfish. I crossed a line that wasn't mine to cross. Layla paused, struggling to keep her composure. Herkison sat nearby, holding her phone and scrolling through messages that had flooded her account. Some supportive, others brutal. The online backlash had been harsh, but Layla wasn't there to defend herself. She was there to own what she'd done. I don't blame the animal, she said, her eyes beginning to well. Bella was just doing what a jaguar do. Disrespected that space, and I got hurt. She didn't do anything wrong for Ammerman. There was silence then. Shia reached for her phone with her uninjured hand, unlocked it, and pulled up an image. It was from just a week before the some yellow topped the same wide. Smile, Layla standing on the edge of a red rock cliff in Sedona, captioned with 2 emojis. And camera. Her social media was a digital diary of thrill-seeking and fearlessness. Zoo visits wildlife, selfies, mountain ledges, an amusement park. Dropsel, polished, filtered, and captioned. Toy press. But now those same images told a different story. They weren't bold, they were blind. It's not worth it, she whispered. No post, no picture, none of itis worth what I'm going through right now. Doctor said she was lucky. No major arteries were severed, no bones shattered, but the trauma, physical and emotional, deep. She would carry the scars forth rest of her life, and though the pain would fade with time, the memory wouldn't for her. Layla James, the selfie that was supposed to make her go viral, had nearly cost her everything, and now all she wanted was for others to learn from what she couldn't take back. Layla's story is not unique, in fact. It's part of a disturbing pattern, a growing trend, where the pursuit of the perfect photo overrides common sense, safety and, in some cases, survival. In May 2017, in South Africa's Gordon province, a man named Mike Hodges was bitten by a lion Afmarkelli predator. Center, he had raised the lion from a cub. He believed they shared a bond, but when he walked into the enclosure for a selfie bezadeth, fully grown predator, the lion turned on him. Hodges was lucky to escape with his life just a year earlier, in July 2016. Tragedy struck at the battling wildlife world in China. A woman ignored warnings and exited her vehicle in Ga safari area. Surveillance cameras captured the horrifying moment. She was dragged away by a Siberian tiger while trying to switch seats with her husband. Her mother, who tried to save her, was mauled to death. The entire family was on a day trip, one moment of misjudgment turned into irreversible loss. And Thesia, just 2 names on a growing list from people trying to pet bison in Yellowstone, 2 thrill-seekers posing on the edge of cliffs beside bears. Thetron is clear what some call danger selfies are no longer rare, they're very here, experts have warned for years that the collision between wildlife and social media would come with consequences. Platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube are flooded with videos of people defying safety barriers, ignoring signs, crossing into restricted zones, all for the sake of going viral. Dracia Connolly, a human wildlife interaction specialist at the University of Colorado, said it bluntly during a 2019 safety summit. People have begun to see wild animals not as living unpredictable beings, but as background props. The illusion of control is what gets people hurt or killed. In Layla James' case, the result wasn't fatal. Butitizili could have been a few inches closer. A second's hesitation and Belith Jaguar might have caught more than just her arm, and it's that fine line between daring and deadly that so many fall when they cross the barrier. While Layla James recovered in a Phoenix hospital, public attention turned sharp lighter. The other central figure in the story, Bella, the female jaguar held at Wildlife World Zoo. The question, Sakilitingan, whispered through headlines and manded by outraged animal advocates, was simple. What would happen to the jaguar? Bella was a 5-year-old big cat born in captivity. Known to zoo staff as observant, calm, and cautious, she had never shown signs of aggression toward handlers or guests. She wasn't violent, she was territorial, and that day when a human crossed into her domain, she acted the only way a wild predator knows how, by defending it. Zoo director Mickey Olson wasted no time setting their course straight. In a public statement hours after the attack, he told reporters, "The jaguar did nothing wrong and will not be euthanized. She is a wild animal, and someone crossed a barrier should not have crossed." That message resonated with animal welfare organizations around the world. The outpouring of support for Bella was swift. Experts and conservationists backed the zoo's decision, emphasizing that putting the jaguar down would be punishing her for human error. She acted on instinct, said Dr. Elaine Benalage, carnivore behaviorist to her Illawas. An intruder she didn't attack out of malice, she defended her territory. That is not abnormal behavior, that is a jaguar being a jaguar. Inside the zoo, Bella was temporarily moved to an off-Sabet holding area, while staff assisted the security of the enclosure. At was a precaution, not a punishment. Zoo officials reviewed every inch of the jaguar exhibit in the days following the incident. Wildlife World Zoo upgraded its signage and reinforced certain access points around the big cat enclosure silo. Striped warning lines were a dead near the low barriers. Additional multi-link signage was installed to warn guests, more explicitly, danger don't cross wild animals may kill, but Bella remained unharmed, unrestrained, and, most importantly, alive. She continued to live behind the fencing she had never crossed because she never needed to. It was never Bella who broke a boundary, it was a visitor who ignored one, and for many, watching that detail changed everything. The end. Layla James survived, but survival came at a cost. The deep, jagged scars that line her forearms serve as permanent reminders of a moment that lasted just seconds, yet changed everything. The surgeries, the physical therapy, the quiet humiliation of having the world weigh in on her mistake. Those stones don't go away quickly. Her Instagram hasn't been updated since the attack. The bright, bold images of her for more life still sit frozen in time, a snapshot of the woman she used to be, confident, untouchable. But today, Layla speaks in classrooms, in safety seminars, in digital awareness campaigns, where her story is used not as entertainment booters. A warning, no picture is worth your life, she says in a recorded clip. Now circulated by zoo safety organizations, safety you have to break a rule to get the shot. It's not a shot you should be taking. Her voice is calm, measured, but beneath it the weight of regret isn't mystical. Her cousin Melissa Rodessoir's standing just feet away when the Jaguar struck in a rare interview shattered her perspective. I still have a dreams about it, her screaming the bloody thought. I was watching her die, we were just lucky she didn't. Melissa Paustiers forming at the corners of her ice butt. Someone else might not be so lucky next time, and that more than anything is the tragedy beneath. The survival thetis warning this moment of horrors would have never been necessary, that it took one woman nearly losing her life for the world to stop and reconsider what it's willing to risk for attention bears. In the wild, real wild, there are no filters, no retakes, just consequences. Sun dips low over Litchfield Park, casting long shadows across the quiet paths of wildlife world. Zoo the crowd. Isconi, now the laughter replaced bisilence, somewhere in the distance. A jaguar paces behind the safety of steel fencing, unaware of the headlines feedbait or the lives she's changed. Beckers. The wild is not a backdrop. It's not a prop for likes or a playground forest takers. It's real, unpredictable, and sometimes one moment of ego can lead to a lifetime of regret. Layla, James served, but others haven't been so lucky, and unless we learn from moments like this one, someone else will pay for us. The signs are there, the barriers are built, but they only work if we choose to respect them always. Respect wildlife, never cross barriers. One photo eye, never worth your life. Subscribe no for more true animal attack stories that will make you think twice. Like this video if you believe animals should never be punished for human mistakes. Comment below, do you think the jaguars have been put down? Thanks for watching, and watch next for our new